Jake Rowe down here tapping his head to the beat of this wonderful intro music. And what a wonderful Sunday it is, guys. Georgia's 2-0. And it was a little bit of an uncharacteristic Saturday for a lot of college football teams. Georgia not the only one. And as Kirby Smart mentioned, the Dogs didn't necessarily play up to their standard. But we got two Dogs HQ staffers on our site that were at the game. Jake Rowe, Palmer Toms. Guys, we've had a little bit of time to think about Georgia's 33-0 win over Samford. What are your thoughts that are still sticking with you after the 24-hour rule is up now?
I'm not telling you to be happy with the 5-score win, but I'm telling you not to be unhappy about it. It wasn't pretty. Offense didn't execute. Defense played well, but Georgia won decisively a few matches against Samford that it should have won. It lost, some situations against Samford that it shouldn't have lost. But ultimately, you win 33-0 in a game that was never stressful, and now it's on to SEC play where you would imagine Georgia would be just a little bit more focused.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of a little bit of a snooze fest. Like Jake said, Georgia jumps on them early, puts up 30 in the first half. Second half, they only put up 3. You saw a little bit of the red zone woes there. Concerns about that, but also think that it came to a point where Kirby didn't want to run it up on Chris Hatcher. The two coaches agreed to shorten the fourth quarter to 12 minutes. Samford pulled out their starting quarterback because they didn't want to, put him at risk where he was going to continue to get hit by Georgia's defense that, like you said, Jake, played pretty well. And also I think Georgia didn't want to show anything. They pulled out what they needed to beat Oregon. They knew that they probably wouldn't have to pull anything out to beat Samford other than get off the bus and pull out the uniforms. And so now, like you said, rolling into SEC play, big one down in Columbia.
Yeah, you mentioned the things that Georgia felt like maybe they could hide, maybe they didn't need to show a ton. One of the things that Kirby said after the game that Georgia basically hid was A.D. Mitchell. He said he didn't need to come back after that first quarter ankle injury. Jake, when we spoke last after the game last night, we still seem to think that it could be severe. Kirby, refuted that somewhat since we spoke, but what's the latest y'all have heard about A.D. Mitchell?
Jake, you're muted.
Sorry, I haven't. I haven't heard a ton. But I'll say this: I take what Kirby says, not necessarily with a grain of salt, but I'm cautious about it. Just because I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. And listen, this is not, Jake's just, trying to tell us what he's heard. I'm not. I haven't heard a thing, and I've tried to check on it. It didn't sit right with me that he didn't come back to the sideline.
Bingo.
And that to me is kind of, I don't know. That just kind of is weird to me. Now, maybe he did. Maybe we didn't see him. Maybe he didn't come back out with a jersey on. Maybe he had a hoodie on. I don't know. But to me, the fact that if he didn't come back to the sideline, that's just weird to me. And I just don't think that's a great sign.
Yeah, Jake, we know that they're pretty good at trying to go cloak and dagger on us, don't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm with you there, where it didn't sit super well with me that he didn't come back out to the sidelines. If that's the case, because if Kirby says, "Oh, he was fine, we thought he could have gone," well, then where was he? Is my next question, and probably should have asked it. And I think that also, maybe it's just that it's the start of SEC play. Maybe it's what we should expect. Maybe it has something to do with this injury, but we're not expected to see any practice this week. And, to me, until I have put eyes on A.D. Mitchell on a football field again, suited up in red and black, I think that there's reason to be at least, I wouldn't necessarily say concerned, but be aware that it's a situation worth monitoring.
So even without A.D. Mitchell yesterday, he finished with one catch, but he wasn't the only Georgia player that had one catch. At least was it 10 other Georgia players had at least one catch against Samford yesterday? Make of that what you will.
More than that.
STETSON, even in a pretty down day for him, was able to distribute the ball, and Georgia's offense as a whole, after Carson Beck went in, continued to distribute the ball. I don't know if you can fully, compensate for A.D. Mitchell's injury by spreading the ball around like that, but that at least gave you guys, I imagine, some sort of glimpse of names like Dylan Bell that could fill in. We saw a lot of Jackson Meeks, more than we normally do. What'd you take away from the reserves?
I really thought Jackson Meeks looked good. I thought he did some good things. I thought Dylan Bell did some good things. Donato Marset getting his feet wet. Oscar Delp, had a chance at one. Ball maybe got there a little late. But I really like what I saw out of Jackson Meeks, I think, more than anybody, just because, he had a couple of catches there, one near the sideline, where I thought that was an easy catch, especially catching it, getting your feet in bounds. But he's a guy that, listen, when Georgia recruited him, it was kind of like, what are they doing? And he's kind of turning out to be a little bit of a productive player, and he's in the rotation. If A.D. Mitchell can't go, I think Jackson Meeks is going to be a guy you need to look out for.
Yeah, for me, it would have been Dylan Bell. I did put him on my radar as players to watch. I kind of felt like that we had heard so much about Dylan in this preseason, the build up to it, that the next step in that progression was a strong showing in a game. Didn't necessarily expect that against Oregon, but I think in a game like this, I thought back to the 2019 season against Murray State. George Pickens had a really good game. Against Arkansas State, Dominic Blaylock had a really good game. Both those guys were true freshmen those years. And I kind of thought that could be the case this year for Dylan against Samford. And obviously has the touchdown, 3 catches, 22 yards, and the only receiving score of the day. So, yeah, I mean, I thought he stood out to me as somebody that, if Georgia is going to be missing A.D. Mitchell, I think that Bell is going to be one of those guys, along with Morissette, along with Meeks, guys that are going to have to step into bigger roles. And I think Kirby has kind of hinted at that all along, that, that they're not going to get through this season unscathed at wide receiver. We're seeing that. We saw that already in the preseason with Arian Smith going down. We're seeing that again here with A.D. Mitchell's health, a little bit of a concern. And, they need guys like those 3 that we just mentioned to step up into depth roles.
We've got our perennial, our annual, our weekly, daily Titan here, Glenn Hartley, in the comments out of Vidalia, Georgia. Go Dogs. Defense looks good. So let's follow Glenn's lead here, guys. The strength of this team was supposed to be the offense. Through 2 games now, though, Georgia's defense has only given up 3 points. Obviously, that means no touchdowns. Yes, obviously, one of those
1.5 a game
with Samford. But say what you will about that, Georgia's defense looks like they're not really missing a beat.
Not even giving up a safety a game. I mean, think about that. I mean, 1.5 a game. Defense does look good. It looks fast. I don't know that they've necessarily been, challenged. And that's the guy right there in that photo on the left, Xavier Sori. I mean, I know Smile Munden stepped up, but Xavier Sori is a guy that I think he's going to be way more of a household name by the end of the year. When I went back and watched the game for the report card, I saw number 18 like moving at a little bit of a different speed. He kind of lit some guys up during preseason camp, to the point that a few of them kind of missed a practice here or there because they got their bell rung. I think he's a guy that you need to keep an eye on. But yeah, the defense looks great. And listen, the offense is scoring, I don't know, what is it, 41 points a game at this point. So
Stetson
it's not
passed
chopped
for
liver.
300 yards yesterday.
Right. Yeah, it's not chopped liver either. But the unfocused effort and the crappy second half notwithstanding, I think Georgia's got a lot of talent on his football team. They're going to be good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Palmer, who stood out to you as you had a chance to rewatch the game, or maybe go back through your notes a little bit, who's jumping off the page that surprised you or kind of snuck up on you in real time?
Yeah, I'll go with the guy on the right there, and that being Smile Munden. Looking at the snap counts for the second straight week, he's played the most among those inside linebackers, and that's a position that we are watching because of what Georgia loses. And I think that I agree with you, Jake, that I think Sorey is going to be more of a household name. I think that those two came into Georgia with big expectations together, same recruiting class, both very highly touted guys out of high school. And I think that there's a chance that both of them are in great shape after this year when it comes to entering their third season with potential pro status. And looking at Munden, he's just somebody that's so athletic. Has a little bit of a Channing Tindall reminds me of Channing Tindall a little bit there, where he can get out in space. Sorey too. I mean, Sorey was an outside linebacker coming into Georgia, but Munden, super athletic guy that has been praised for that athleticism by Kirby Smart, and we know that Smart has seen a lot of linebackers. So. He's somebody that has stood out. And then obviously, I wrote it in Rest and React. I think that it was on everybody's bingo card for Georgia that Michael Williams getting the first sack of the season. I don't think that was out of the realm of possibility, but I also don't think that we expected to go 7 quarters without seeing one. I think a lot of that has to do with the offenses that they're going up against, the priority of getting the ball out quick. But certainly, as the season goes along, interested to see if Georgia's going to up that sack production and kind of challenge what they did last year, because that was such a big component of what they did.
Palmer, you wrote, and Jake and I spoke about this last night in the post-game show. You wrote about how after sitting on it for a little bit, the emotions, the letdown maybe of Georgia only winning 33-0, maybe not as drastic or as dire as fans may have thought last night. I think Stetson Bennett may be worth examining again under that lens. Y'all have had some time to think about it. What are your takeaways about Stetson Bennett after that amazing game against Oregon that put him on the Heisman contender map, and then yesterday kind of had some head scratcher moments and some off throws? Jake, you're muted.
Actually,
again.
I'm muted again. I normally don't mute, but I'm in this new house and we've got all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna have
right
we're gonna start doing the mute mic dollar in the jar, I think.
Yeah, that's 2 for me tonight. Little good, little bad for Stetson, and I think the bad was accentuated by when it happened. Right off the bat, you look at missing Jackson Meeks for what would have been a long touchdown on maybe the 4th play of the game. And that was just after hitting Jackson Meeks on a nice quick slant to pick up a first down, to pick up a third on third down. And then the next 2, the next drive, he missed back-to-back passes, overshot Brock Bowers, somehow overshot Darnell Washington. And those were chances for Georgia to go up 14-0, seize momentum in that game. And guys, we're probably feeling a lot different about that game if Georgia's up 38-0 at half. You're sitting there 38-0 at a half. You're like, all right, well, you're on pace to score 76 points. Well, that didn't happen. They were on 30-0. Then they only put 3 up in the second half. You put 3 up in the second half and beat Samford 41-0. You're in the 40s. It looks good. That's what you're averaging right now. And I don't know. I feel like Kirby kind of made that point after the game, and I got to echo it. Listen, Stetson wasn't horrible. He threw for 300 yards. He should have against Samford. It's more than I thought he would have thrown for. But, that rollout ball to Ladd McConkey for 37 yards was a dime. He hit Brock Bowers, who made a really nice catch for him on a really good play. Hit Kyrus Jackson near the sideline right before the half. He did some good things, but he had some head-scratching moments. That sack was one of them. That one where he reversed his field. Samford played it well. He ran right into it. So it's we know how good he's capable of being.
Yeah, yeah, that sack specifically was something that I thought about a lot, because Stetson kind of talked about that after the Oregon game, saying that, you know, his throw to Ladd in that game, you know, where he escaped pressure, the highlight reel, everybody wants to make that his Heisman moment already. You know, he said that at the same time, he probably should have just thrown that ball away, gotten to second down, second and goal, and punched it in, you know, that way, as opposed to risking a sack, you know, but ultimately he scored a touchdown there. He paid for it against Samford. And I think that's a learning moment. You know, I think that he has obviously experienced that before. He knows that he should have done something that he didn't do. And I think that comes with, you know, maybe being a little bit not as locked in this game. You know, as a team, I think that it's really hard to get up for 2 games in a row like this, especially, you know, after you had so much buildup for that Georgia-Oregon game all offseason. You got the buildup of wanting to prove people wrong. You come back to home, it's a gross day out, you know, not a lot of fan excitement, and you know, are playing an inferior opponent. You know, I think that, and we've talked about this a couple times here, it's interesting that Georgia's not playing a home SEC game until October against Auburn. And I think that, you know, would it surprise me if Georgia had a similar showing like they did against Samford, against Kent State here in a couple weeks? It probably wouldn't surprise me, but I also think that Kirby is probably going to point back to this Samford game, you know, all throughout the season and say, hey, you know, we got to come out, we got to play. If we're not going to be able to, you know, do what we want to do, be who we want to be, if we're not completely focused. So, you know, that sack is a microcosm of that. You know, cost Georgia 3 points there, at least. And, you know, I think that, but like you said, Jake, I think that there's a lot of good that happened as well. Hard to knock somebody that throws for 300 yards for a second straight game.
Yeah, it is. And with the bar that's Stetson set against Oregon, it was going to be very difficult to match up to it. I don't even know if it's as extreme as, you know, the Oregon game was as good as Stetson can be. Samford is as bad as he can be, and the real Stetson's in the middle. I think it's easy at this point anyway, just to chalk it up to a rough game, tough showing, bad day at the office. Everyone has them every now and then. And let's see what Georgia does from here. And let's see how Georgia diagnoses some of those problems that Stetson had. You know, you bring up the lasting results of this game or what it really means moving forward, Palmer. Let's touch on that before we talk about some other stuff, start looking ahead in the week a little bit. How ultimately concerned do you feel like Georgia fans should be about this game? Because I spoke with you Saturday, Ro, after the game, and that was kind of my thing. Is when you see this happen, you see one game like this, is Georgia capable of beating themselves? That was my big question coming out of this game. Because last year, and I don't want to keep comparing this team to last year, every team is different, but we didn't really see a lot of moments last year where Georgia found themselves in a situation to beat themselves. Bama really did beat them in the SEC championship game. Georgia didn't make a lot of mistakes, and yesterday they did look a little sloppy.
Yeah, I didn't see it, though, as a game where they could have beaten themselves. You know, they were sloppy and they never really righted the ship. Maybe that was because of the opponent. Maybe that was because they just, I mean, guys, I don't care who you are, how mature you are, how smart you are, or how good of mind games you can play with yourself. If you know that you can keep a team at arm's length, if you know that they're just not going to get you, then you're gonna react a little differently. You know, I think if Samford would have been challenging them, maybe they would have woke up at some point. And by wake up, I don't mean that they were playing with a lack of intensity or lack of juice. It was just kind of a lack of focus and execution, that attention to detail. I mean, obviously, I think Georgia's capable, just like every other team in the country is capable of beating themselves, of playing poorly. But I just don't know that you look at yesterday's game as anything other than, okay, well, maybe this is what this team can do if it's not ready. But we also know what this team can do if it is, and that's what really matters.
I mean, look, ultimately we're talking about the number one team in the country right now, and that's just where Georgia fans are. One bad game, you start to wonder, are we slowing down a little bit? let's talk about Georgia jumping Alabama to the #1 spot in the AP poll, Bama the coaches poll situation. A little bit of scuttlebutt on our message board today that the coaches are scared to let Nick Saban down. I think we all know that the coaches aren't the actual people filling those ballots out. They might send a text out and say, hey, this is who I got. But Georgia with, I believe, 53 votes in the #1 spot in the AP poll. If Kirby already was lacking in rat poison to motivate the team or to come at you guys with a little bit of extra heat on the fastball this week, the #1 ranking, I'm sure, will be a topic of discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that we may see that outcome there with the AP poll. With the AP poll giving Georgia the nod and the coaches giving Alabama the nod. Got a hint at that with the Football Writers Association putting out their poll. The media there had put Georgia at 1. And so, was not too terribly surprised to see UGA at 1. In all honesty, I don't know that I would have made the jump just because Georgia didn't look as impressive against Samford as I probably would have liked to have seen. And Alabama, their loss, it's really hard to knock them for their loss in the mind of the voters. They go on the road and they play a tradition-rich program in a tough environment. Really hard to knock them. But overall, I think that you've got to give credit to, Georgia for going out and getting a win. I mean, a lot of teams, like Glenn says, big upsets this weekend. A lot of teams didn't get that win. We're going to do a little bit of stock report here later and stock up for the Sun Belt.
Yeah, no doubt. Stock is up, and stock's up on Jake Roos as well. Welcome to the show, my man. Let's get into this Sunday segment. We're going to call Dog Stocks. Jake and Palmer. Here's how it works. You don't have to do a stock up and a stock down. I just want to hear what you are the most fired up about, whether it's a player, offensive, defensive scheme, offensive coordinator, or a player in the NFL. If you are really passionate about one of those things, stock going up, or one of those things, stock going down, let's hear what you got. I will start with Palmer Toms. Who's in your dog stock report tonight?
Yeah, so I gave you a little bit of hint there mentioning the upsets this past weekend and the Sun Belt there. I am stocked down on Desmond Howard. College Game Days, Desmond Howard put out his playoff predictions before the season with Texas A&M, Pitt, Baylor, and Michigan. 3 of those 4 teams lost this weekend. Tough look there for Dez. He had A&M winning it all. A&M goes out and loses at home this weekend to App State. Pitt and Baylor, I'll give them a little bit of a break because they did lose to top 25 teams. But still, if you're going to make the playoffs, you got to win those games. If you're going to, if you're going to play in a big play, like a big stage like that, you got to win big games late in the season. And if you're not winning games now, why should I believe that you're going to win games late? Shout out to Michigan, I guess, keeping Desmond's playoff prediction.
Yeah, they're still in there.
Alive, but maybe that's a little bit of a homer take from him there.
Yeah, probably so. All right, Jake Rowe, who you got?
Well, I mean, I'd like to add to Palmer. Georgia Southern got a guy fired, so I mean that was another piece of little thing there too. I mean, and listen, got to go hard on Texas A&M real fast. That loss was every bit as disappointing as Nebraska's loss, even more because Texas A&M is supposed to be awesome, and they're not. They're terrible. They're really bad. They were really bad last week. Listen, I'm going with Anthony Richardson because stock down. I mean, I listened to some podcasts, I listened to some people, and folks were fawning over this kid. And honestly, he made a few plays. He made a handful of plays against Utah in a game that Florida could have lost. And I picked him to win, and I was impressed with the win. But, man, he had – somebody pointed out on our board he had more tackles than touchdowns. And that's real bad.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
he should have had another. I mean, if he'd had another tackle, maybe they win that game because he threw a pick six. So that means he didn't make a tackle. He was awful. He was terrible. Florida was terrible. Kentucky looked pretty good. You want to talk about a team that learns to learn how to scratch and claw and find a way. Kentucky has done that under Mark.
How about doing it on the road in the swamp?
Yeah, absolutely. Did it when Utah couldn't.
That used to never happen.
Yeah, never. But yeah, I think folks, the national folk need to pump the brakes a little bit on Anthony Richardson a little bit. He's not there, and stock down for him.
Look, people are very hungry to see Alabama go down. People are going to start to be very hungry to see Georgia go down, just to make the sport more interesting. And if you're a national writer, national podcast host, I get that. But the nature of the business is you can make that prediction and no one ever has to hold you accountable to it. But Jake Rowe isn't one of those people. He's going to hold your feet to the fire. And if you loved Anthony Richardson,
that's what I'm made of, Wes. That's what I am made of.
Then you were wrong.
Guys. Hey, Jake mentions that pick six. Anthony Richardson mentioned it after the game, saying that it reminded him a little bit of one last year.
Oh, yeah. It looked a lot like it.
It did look a lot like it. I saw the tweet and then I saw the play, and going back watching the play, I was like, wow, that does really remind me of that same one.
Jake Roos, greetings.
Welcome.
Your mic is on. Give us your stock up, stock down. What's your latest inside trading tip on college football?
I got a couple this week, man. I think
coming in hot.
First off, stock down on the halftime spaces for Dogs HQ last week. Huge failure.
All right, let me hold on. Let me add this video to the. Let me add this video because it's one of those things that when Dogs HQ is the largest Georgia media site on the planet, and the show's getting 1 million streams every time we go on, we're gonna go back and laugh. But when I find this video here, you're going to understand. But Jake, you go ahead and share your side of things while I try to find this video clip. What happened?
Okay, so Saturday, Wes hits me up. Halftime space is on. You want to come on? I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Always glad to hop on and talk. On my end of things, Wes goes dead. I can't hear it. I hear nothing. So I'm under the impression at this point that I am the sole speaker. I'm the person who is having to carry the stream in the space.
It was ridiculous.
As long as it goes. So I'm just over here opining on anything that I possibly can think of.
Can I jump in here real quick? Jake Roos, they do this thing in radio called a reset, okay? And they talk to you about why they're there. And Roos goes, yeah, here we are 30-0 at halftime.
Oh, reset Roos.
I mean, dude, he reset like 4 times. Dude was filibustering. He was doing the best he could. I mean, I thought he was going to break out the newspaper. He thought he was alone. And the whole time I was sitting here hearing Wes go, yeah, I don't think Roos can hear me now, but.
All right, here we go. Here's the clip. Mute Jake right now.
I don't know what happened to Wes. Sure about that, but he's out there somewhere.
I'm here. This is like the scene in Interstellar where Matthew McConaughey's in the bookshelf and his daughter doesn't know it. Yeah, classic moment. Stock down on the Dogs HQ Twitter space for sure. Good call, Roos.
Stock down on that for sure. But hey. Look, we'll get the kinks worked out. It was fun regardless.
It is fun. It's just you never know what's going to be haunting the technical aspects of this production here. You never can tell.
I'm going to say I got 2 more. To me, a little Georgia note here. Stock up on Jackson Meeks. I was excited to see him involved on Saturday. I think I talked about that on the Twitter space, which is why I brought it up, to be honest with you.
Works the sideline well.
Yeah, he does. He's a guy who works the sideline well. He does. Go back and watch that kid's high school tape. He was injured frequently, but I think that he's a guy who can be an impact maker for Georgia at the wide receiver position. And I encourage people to go read Palmer. What was the name of the trainer? I forget his name. The guy out of Atlanta. Anyway, Palmer did a great story.
Palmer did a feature with
And I'm forgetting his name now too.
Yeah. Palmer did a great feature on the guy working with the Georgia wide receivers in the offseason. Jackson Meeks was a guy he pointed to that he thought was taking some steps forward. Thought that was cool to see. So stock up on him. But my big one, stock up on being the asset manager of Scott Frost. Buddy, it's a good day in the Scott Frost household. It's not ideal. I mean, you don't want to be fired, right? But my man got another $7 million for getting fired before October. So big stock up when you're talking about Scott Frost bank account.
Way to turn the Scott Frost firing into a stock up. That's, coming in pretty strong here in your first dog stock report. Good job, guys. Steph
Brown is the name of
Steph Brown. That's right.
Hey, Scott Frost, can I hold $1?
Yeah.
Ain't no doubt.
I'm going stock up on DeAndre Swift. Big day for the Dogs in the NFL. I'm sure we'll get to Trayvon Walker in a moment. But DeAndre Swift today becomes the first Detroit Lions running back to rush for 100 yards in a season opener since Barry Sanders in 1996. DeAndre Swift is a guy that we all said looked like a pro back when he was at Georgia, and he's on the Lions. Always a struggle when you're trying to make your living playing for Detroit and in Detroit. But Swift got it done today. If you've been watching Hard Knocks, you know how serious he is about this season, how much he's pushing himself with Coach Deuce Staley, which is a pretty cool connection for us this week with South Carolina coming up. But Swift said he wanted to be the running back this season to eclipse 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving. There aren't a lot of guys in NFL history that have done it. Only 3 other players can say they've done it. Maybe that's too high of a goal for Swift, but he is well on his way, at least in the rushing category after today's performance against the Eagles. Pretty solid stuff.
Shout out to my fantasy team.
Shout out to Guna on our board, too, for saying the other day, and I hadn't even thought about it. Think about DeAndre Swift working under Todd Monken, man. I feel like he would be a perfect fit for what Georgia's doing offensively right now.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that was a good hypothetical that we could spend another hour talking about. But basically the question was, which starting Georgia quarterback within the last, I think it was 10, 15 years or whatever it was, would have benefited the most playing for Todd Monken or playing in Todd Monken's offense based on how he runs the show. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and my gut told me Matthew Stafford because of Noshawn Moreno, and he did have Massaquoi and A.J. Green at his disposal too. The tight end talent at the time, no disrespect to those guys, just not kind of up to the standard of what Georgia's tight ends are right now. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, that one is a good one. What was the time frame again?
2000 to present?
I think it was from 2000 to now. So basically starting with Corey Phillips, David Green.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say, even if it was just for 1 year, DJ Shockley. Because I think Monken would have done a really good job with his physical skill set in the run game. I think DJ Shockley is a guy that, might have had a big enough year that, that he didn't get ignored in the draft process and may have gotten drafted a little higher, maybe a little bit better opportunity to do something.
The mobility would definitely help. I did mention Trayvon Walker's big day. The Jags lose to the Commanders, but Trayvon has 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. We can't show the highlights.
That interception was sick.
Or I guess it was CBS would sue us into the ground. But definitely go look up the highlights from Trayvon today. Just amazing stuff. If anyone was doubting whether or not that guy was a number 1 pick, they're not admitting it right now, I don't think.
Tyson Campbell also with a pick in that game too.
Yeah.
How do they lose, man? Especially to the Commanders.
Well, did you see that last throw?
Because they're the Jags.
Yeah. No, I excited to see that for Trayvon, man. Great to see it for a guy, number 1 pick. People argued a lot about the Aiden Hutchinson thing, and I mean, that'll be an ongoing thing throughout their careers, but good to see that for Trayvon, man. Happy to.
And hey, while we're talking dogs in the NFL, Unfortunately, he got a win today, but Athens North New York Giants get the win over the Titans with Tay Crowder laying the lumber on Derrick Henry.
On Tractor Cito.
Tractor Cito.
Yeah, Palmer's a Titans guy. I don't know if the Jakes or myself will claim the Falcons, but that was pretty Falcons-esque today.
It was beautiful. It was everything you expect it to be every single time.
Yeah, just a beautiful train wreck. All right, guys, we will definitely get more into Georgia, South Carolina later on this week, our Wednesday night live show. Appreciate y'all tuning in. But before we end tonight's show, any big picture thoughts as we get into South Carolina week, noon kickoff in Columbia? It is going to be 1,000 degrees.
I feel good about Georgia in this one. I think probably everybody's going to say the same. But like you said, to me, the weather is the factor. If it's not raining, it's going to be
seems like a good wet ball week.
It's going to be hot as hell if it's not, and it's going to teach you a lot about where Georgia's at conditioning wise. And I think that's probably something they haven't had to deal with to this point in the year. But that Columbia sun hits different. So really looking forward to seeing if that's going to be the case on Saturday.
Intermittent throughout this big green and blue ball we live on, there are different ways, different portals to get to hell. Columbia's built over one of them. That's a hot place, dude. I'm so glad I'm going to be walking to that stadium at about 9 a.m., 8:30 a.m. because it's going to be a burner. I think Georgia's better suited to deal with that because of depth. But I think it all comes down to Spencer Rattler. Georgia's got 1 sack in 2 games. They've got to get to Spencer Rattler, and they've got to get to him early because Arkansas did. And I think that's going to be a big key in that game.
I'll believe it when I see it, but right now, temperature says high of 85 on Saturday in Columbia. Like I said, I'll believe it when I see it.
It's probably Celsius.
Yeah. But for me, this week is all about figuring out who your pass catchers can be. If AD can go, if he can't go, I think it's time to unleash the tight ends. Feel like we still haven't seen the fullest extent of what they can do, and I think that's by design. That Georgia's going to hold that back until they have to unleash those wrecking balls.
Yep. Shout out to Jake and Palmer at the game on Saturday. Best of luck, best wishes on the travels, and shout out to our fearless intern, Jack Matheson, who got a pretty sweet video from the sidelines of Georgia's first game back between the hedges as defending national champions. Just an exciting day all around on campus for Georgia, even though it wasn't as electric on the field as we predicted. Always good to be in Athens for a Georgia Saturday. Guys, appreciate your time this evening. Still take advantage of the $1 for 1 year promo at dogshq.com. If you aren't already, you are missing out. And appreciate y'all tuning in and listening. We'll catch you in a few days. Peace.